All right, beauties. So good to be with you on another edition of Wisdom Walks. Today, we're actually going to be talking about condemnation. And I know we spoke about judgment a few months back, but I really want to dive into this topic because it's becoming so prevalent right now. We're seeing a lot of it in the media. We're seeing it amongst friends groups. This divisive control mechanism is really well underway. And I think it's important that we talk about it. Okay, everyone, I'm so happy to be with you. You know, there's something so sacred about connection, even if I'm on the other side of a camera and you're sitting and listening or watching right now. And I want to talk to you guys about what's been going on in the world, because a lot of people have been sharing with me how difficult things have been for them, how they've been struggling, how they've been just feeling overwhelmed by all of this energy. And so I want to talk a little bit about condemnation and this whole idea, because we cannot heal condemnation through more condemnation. It doesn't work. And yet I see a lot of people who are trying this exact strategy where they're blaming one side or they're condemning one side, accusing one side of being the wrong side or what have you. And that's not solving the problem, folks. It's actually making it worse. And so how do we stop this cycle of condemnation? That's the question. So the first thing I do want to share about condemnation is that this has been something that has been ingrained into society, into us for centuries. Since the beginning of time, the strategy to keep control over others was divide and conquer. But here's what I know to be true. When we have strong personal power, meaning that we are empowered, meaning that we are living our lives and not getting distracted by anything outside of us, when we have a strong sense of personal power, we have no desire to have power over others. And so it actually is an indication of how broken humanity is in so many ways. And that's not to say that we're doom and gloom here. It's strictly to say, hey, there's some brokenness in the world and that's okay. But we also have an opportunity to see that, to witness that, to not judge that, to not condemn that, but to have an awareness so that we can continue to build our own personal power. Because the more personal power that we have, the easier our life actually gets. Now, divide and conquer is the oldest playbook that exists. And so I just want to remind you guys to give yourself some grace. If you have been finding yourself in condemning other people and judging other people, especially with everything that's been going on in the world, that's a really big invitation for you to take a step back, to give yourself some grace, to know that we have been wired and conditioned to be this way. And so once you know that, then you actually have the power to choose differently in how you want to respond to whatever chaos, to whatever drama is happening around you. Whenever we are condemning other people, what we're actually doing is condemning ourselves. And a lot of people don't realize this. So regardless of whether or not you attach this to the assassination that happened this month, or, you know, whatever tragedy is happening in the world, the invitation is for you to lean into a deeper layer of compassion. And I know that's really tough, because especially when someone does something that causes harm or death, it's so hard to have compassion for whoever caused that. But what we have to remember is that there's a contract, that's happening, that soul on some level, whomever is causing the harm, has some sort of contract. We might not understand it. It might not even make any sense to us. But if we can understand that they have a contract and that they are actually fulfilling the role that they need to fulfill for some bigger picture, then it allows us to have even a teensy-weensy little bit of compassion. And I know I'm asking for a lot in that invitation, but I got to tell you, that is how we break the cycle of condemnation. We break it by first awareness. We break it next by choosing to perceive a much bigger picture. And we then lean into compassion, understanding that that person had some sort of contract on a soul level, not a three-dimensional human level, but on a soul level. They had some sort of contract and they had to fulfill that contract. Again, even if we can't understand it. I know this is a really tough conversation for a lot of people. And I've been witnessing this destruction that's been happening between other groups, other sects of people, different races, different communities. And here's the call. The call is to come into harmony. The call is to come into community. It's to actually befriend those people that maybe we wouldn't normally. And it is going to require us a great deal of compassion. I got to tell you guys, though, compassion is the way here. It's the only way through. And so inviting you to have more compassion for yourself and more compassion for other people. You know, I just want to add a couple of things just to remind you of the incredible power that you have. And I think sometimes in these situations, when tragedy strikes or when there's chaos in the world, it's really easy to forget our own power. We are so powerful. In fact, our human minds cannot even comprehend the amount of power that we actually possess in our beingness, in our light. And sometimes it doesn't require us having to do a whole lot. And I want to give you guys an example. When we are in the presence of people that exude love, notice that you feel really good. And they don't have to say anything. They don't even have to do anything. But just notice that you feel good being in their presence. That should tell you everything. Because if you can show up in that way, knowing that you are the light and you are the love in the world, you actually don't have to, you're not required to do a whole bunch of work necessarily or do something to be that light, to be that love. And so I really want to remind you that if you walk in a position of compassion, deep self-compassion, that actually creates a massive, massive ripple. And I know it's easy to forget, but again, this goes back to power. Because everything that's been happening in the world is about control, it's about power, it's about keeping people in fear. But you do have so much power beyond what your mind can even comprehend. And so I remind you of your essence and your light and how that exudes into the world. Because it's so easy to forget that, especially in times that are troublesome for us. And then the other thing that I want to end with today is to also remind you that I am you and you are me. And so if I'm out there condemning somebody else, if I am condemning somebody for doing something wrong, and I am calling them names, and I am, spewing hate and unkindness, I'm actually doing it to myself. I'm actually doing it to myself. And so I invite you, in fact, I plead with you, that if you are finding yourself condemning anyone, no matter what quote unquote side, there's no sides. Separation, it's actually an illusion. It's actually a freaking illusion, you guys. And so reminding you that what you are putting out there is actually bouncing right back into you. And so what I do unto others, I do unto myself. And so I invite you with gentleness, with grace, to catch yourself. Again, going back to the awareness piece, going back to this bigger picture thinking, going back to this understanding that we're not so separate after all, and that everyone has their role and their contract here. I've had to pull a great deal of forgiveness for myself, but for others as well over the last little while. And I've had people say to me, but how do you forgive them? Like, aren't you mad? Yeah, I might have some feelings about things. I might get triggered by things still too, but that's an indication to me of the things that I still get to work on. And so it becomes a gift in that way, reminding you that, again, we all have a soul contract here. And I know it's easy to condemn and to judge when we don't have the bigger picture, but our job is to trust that divine, that God, that creator has got it covered and got it under control. Everything is in place the way it's supposed to be, even if we don't understand it. And so really allowing ourselves to come into such gentleness with ourselves and with the rest of the world too, because Lord knows we need love now, compassion now more than ever before. Sending you a lot of love and compassion today. Until next time.